The rain was pouring. Gabriella stood there, 6 months pregnant, suitcase in her trembling hand, mascara running down her brown cheeks. And then, the woman in the red gown appeared. The mistress, the woman who had just stolen her entire life. Freya's heels clicked against the marble floor as she approached. Gabriella wanted to scream, to run, to disappear, but she was frozen. "Come with me," Freya said softly. Gabriella's voice broke. "Why? Haven't you done enough? You're sleeping with my husband. You're in my house. What more could you possibly want from me?" Freya's green eyes held something Gabriella couldn't read. Not triumph. Not cruelty. Something else entirely. "I want to give you something." They walked to Darren's study. Freya opened a drawer and pulled out an envelope. She held it out, and when Gabriella looked inside, her breath caught. Cash. Stacks and stacks of $100 bills. $20,000, Freya whispered. "Take it. Leave tonight. Don't tell anyone where you're going." Gabriella stared at her. "What kind of sick game is this?" "It's not a game. Listen to me carefully." Freya's voice was urgent now, almost desperate. 7 days. Give it exactly 7 days. And then come back here. Come back? Why would I ever come back to this place? Freya's perfectly composed face cracked, just for a moment, because someone once offered me the same chance, and I didn't take it. I won't watch another woman make my mistake. Please, Gabriella, trust me. 7 days. Before we go on, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know. And if this story is touching you, take a second to subscribe, like, and share it. It really helps this message reach more people who need it. Now, let's get back to the story. For years earlier, Gabriella didn't know that walking into that charity gala would change her entire life. She was 26, working as a grant writer for a nonprofit called Hope Harbor. It was a small organization that helped formerly incarcerated women rebuild their lives. The pay was terrible. The hours were long. But Gabriella loved it with every fiber of her being. She'd wake up excited to go to work. She'd spend her evenings crafting proposals, finding the perfect words to convince donors that these women deserve second chances. The gala was Hope Harbor's biggest fundraiser of the year. Gabriella had organized every detail. The venue, a historic hotel with crystal chandeliers and white marble floors. The caterers, the musicians, the auction items. She'd spent 3 months planning, barely sleeping, making sure everything was perfect. She wore a simple black dress that night. Nothing fancy. She'd bought it on sale at a department store. Her hair was natural, pulled back in a low bun. Small gold earrings her mother had given her before she passed. She wasn't trying to be noticed. She was just trying to make sure the event ran smoothly. But Darren noticed her anyway. He was 34, a rising CEO in the tech industry. His company, something to do with data analytics that Gabriella didn't fully understand, was already worth millions. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. When he walked into the room, people gravitated toward him. Power has its own magnetic field. "You did all this?" he'd asked, approaching her near the silent auction table. Gabriella had been rearranging bid sheets, making sure the lighting was right on a vintage photograph they were auctioning. She looked up, startled. "I'm sorry, this event." He gestured around the room. "My assistant told me you organized everything. It's impressive." She'd felt herself blush. "Thank you. We're hoping to raise enough to expand our housing program." "Tell me about it." And she did. For 20 minutes, standing near that auction table, she told the stranger about Hope Harbor's mission, about Maria, who'd served 8 years for a crime she committed in desperation, who was now a certified nursing assistant, about Keisha, who'd lost custody of her kids but was fighting to get them back, about how society throws people away. But everyone deserves dignity. Darren listened, really listened. His blue eyes never left her face. "You're passionate," he said when she finally paused to breathe. "It matters," she replied simply. "So do you." He said it quietly, like a confession. "Would you have dinner with me?" "Not here. Somewhere we can actually talk." Gabriella should have said no. She should have recognized the chasm between their worlds. But there was something in his eyes that night. Something warm. Something that made her feel seen. "Okay," she heard herself say. Dinner turned into a walk through the city. The walk turned into coffee at an all-night diner. Coffee turned into watching the sunrise from a park bench. Still talking, laughing, sharing stories. He told her about growing up middle class in Ohio, about building his company from nothing, about the loneliness of success. She told him about losing her parents in a car accident when she was 23, about finding purpose in helping others, about believing in redemption. When he finally drove her home that morning, the sun was fully up. Before she got out of the car, he touched her hand gently. "I want to see you again." "Why?" The question slipped out. She hadn't meant to ask. "Because in 12 hours, you made me feel more alive than I felt in 12 years. They dated for 8 months. It was a whirlwind. Darren was charming, attentive, generous. He sent flowers to her office. He showed up at Hope Harbor to volunteer, looking almost comical in expensive jeans trying to paint a community room. He met her friends. He asked about her day and actually cared about the answers. He was also particular. Gabriella noticed it in small ways. The way he'd suggest a different restaurant if she chose one he considered beneath standard. The way he'd buy her clothes, beautiful expensive things, and seemed disappointed when she wore her own instead. The way he'd check his watch when she talked too long about work. But she told herself it was fine. Nobody was perfect. Relationships were about compromise. When he proposed, 11 months after that charity gala, it was at a 5-star restaurant. The ring was enormous. People at other tables applauded. "Marry me, Gabriella. Let me take care of you. Let me give you the life you deserve." She said yes. How could she not? He loved her. She loved him. This was a fairy tale, wasn't it? The wedding was 6 months later. 300 guests. A venue that looked like a palace. Gabriella's dress cost more than she used to make in 6 months. It was beautiful. It was perfect. It was everything a wedding should be. Except Imani pulled her aside before the ceremony. Imani had been Gabriella's best friend since college. They'd been roommates, sisters in everything but blood. Imani knew her better than anyone. "Gabby." Imani said quietly, adjusting Gabriella's veil. "Are you sure about this?" "What?" "Of course I'm sure. I'm getting married in 20 minutes. "I know. Imani hesitated. "You've changed since you've been with Darren. You're quieter, smaller somehow." Gabriella had laughed, but it sounded forced even her own ears. "I'm just growing up. This is what adult relationships look like." Adult relationships don't make you disappear, Gabby. But the music was starting. The doors were opening. And Gabriella walked down that aisle in her expensive dress, toward her successful husband, into her new perfect life. The first year of marriage was an adjustment. Darren suggested, gently but firmly, that she should quit her job at Hope Harbor. "You don't need to work anymore. And honestly, honey, it's a bit awkward. My colleagues' wives don't work. Especially not at..." He'd trailed off, but his meaning was clear. Especially not at a nonprofit for ex-convicts. Gabriella had resisted at first. "But I love my work. It's important to me. I'm important to you too, aren't I? I need a partner who can travel with me, attend events, build our social network. You can do charity work as a volunteer. As my wife. As my wife." She'd heard that phrase more and more. Not Gabriella. Not her own name with her own identity. Darren's wife. She quit. Her boss had hugged her, tears in his eyes. "You have a gift, Gabriella. Don't lose it." But she'd already handed in her access card, already walked out of the building, already started the process of becoming someone else. Seeing Imani became complicated. Darren never said she couldn't. He was too smart for that. But he'd make comments. "Again? Didn't you just see her last week?" Or he'd schedule something for them the same night Gabriella had plans with Imani. Or he'd be in a bad mood after she came home from Imani's place, silent and cold until she apologized for something she couldn't name. It was easier to just see Imani less, then hardly at all. By their second anniversary, Gabriella's days had a rhythm. Wake up when Darren woke up. Make his coffee the way he liked it. Go to the gym because he preferred her to stay in shape. Have lunch with the other corporate wives, women with perfect hair and empty conversations. attend his business dinners in the right clothes with the right smile, come home to the mansion that never felt like home, sleep beside a man who touched her less and less. She'd look in the mirror sometimes and not recognize herself. Her hair was always straightened now. Darren said it looked more polished that way. Her clothes were designer labels in neutral colors. Nothing too bright. Nothing that drew too much attention. Her laugh had become quieter, more controlled. She'd learned which topics to avoid, which opinions to keep to herself. She was 29 years old and felt like she was vanishing. Then she got pregnant. She'd taken 3 tests, not believing it. They'd been trying for 6 months. Well, she'd been trying. Darren had been available occasionally. But there it was. 2 pink lines. A miracle growing inside her. She'd planned this whole elaborate way to tell him. Bought a little pair of baby shoes. Made his favorite dinner. Worn the lingerie he'd bought her that she normally found uncomfortable. But when he came home that night, 2 hours late, she couldn't wait. Darren, she'd said, meeting him at the door, I have news. He'd been checking his phone. I'm pregnant. He'd looked up then. For a moment, she couldn't read his expression. Then he smiled, pulled her into a hug. That's wonderful, honey. Really wonderful. But his arms had felt stiff, and he let go too quickly. And he'd gone to his study for the rest of the night. She'd told herself he was just surprised. Processing. Men handled these things differently. The pregnancy was fine physically. Textbook, her doctor said. But emotionally, Gabriella felt herself drowning. Darren became more distant. More nights at the office. More business trips. More times she'd reach for him in bed and find his side empty. She'd smell perfume on his shirt sometimes. Not her perfume. Something floral and expensive. She'd see texts on his phone screen. Just glimpses before he turned the phone over. Can't wait to see you. Last night was amazing. But when she'd asked, voice shaking, Darren, is there someone else? He'd looked at her with such convincing confusion. What? Gabriella, how could you even ask that? I'm working. Building a future for our family. And this is the thanks I get? Accusations. He'd made her feel crazy. Paranoid. Hormonal. She'd apologized. Actually apologized for noticing that her husband was cheating on her. By her 6th month, she was a shell, going through motions, talking to the baby growing inside her, because she had no one else to talk to. Imani had reached out a few times, but Gabrielle was too ashamed to respond, too embarrassed to admit how completely she'd lost herself. She'd wake up some mornings with her hand on her belly and think, I need to be stronger for you. I need to remember who I am. But she didn't know how. She'd been Darren's wife for so long. She couldn't remember how to be Gabriella. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday. Raining. Gabriella was in the living room, folding baby clothes she bought online. Tiny onesies in yellow and green, because they didn't know the sex yet. She was 6 months along, her belly finally showing in a way that made it real. She heard the front door open. Darren was home early. That was unusual. Honey, she called out, setting down a small pair of socks. Footsteps, but not just his. Multiple people. Gabriella stood, confused, walking toward the foyer. And that's when her world ended. Darren stood there in his Tom Ford suit, rain droplets on his shoulders. Next to him was a man she didn't recognize, holding a briefcase. A lawyer. She knew immediately. Something about the way he stood, official and detached. And on Darren's other side was a woman. She was breathtaking in a way that felt almost cruel. Pale skin that looked like it had never seen a blemish. Hair the color of honey, styled in waves that cascaded past her shoulders. She wore a red gown, an evening gown, at 4 in the afternoon. Silk that probably cost thousands, with a neckline that was elegant but suggestive. Diamonds at her ears and throat that caught the light from the chandelier. The chandelier Darren had imported from Vienna, the one he'd been so proud of. The woman's eyes met Gabriella's. Green, sharp, assessing. Gabriella, Darren said. His voice was flat, professional, like he was starting a business meeting. We need to talk. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. Her hand went instinctively to her belly, protective, This is Richard Morrison, my attorney, Darren continued, gesturing to man with the briefcase. And this is Freya. He didn't say who Freya was. He didn't have to. Gabriella found her voice, though it came out as a whisper. Darren, what is this? I'm going to be direct, because dragging this out helps no one. He straightened his already straight tie. A nervous tell she recognized from 4 years of marriage. I want a divorce. I don't love you anymore. I haven't for a while. Freya will be staying here. I need you to pack your things and leave tonight. The room tilted. Gabriella reached for the wall to steady herself. What? The word barely had sound. You heard me. It's over, Gabriella. Richard has already started filing the paperwork. You'll be contacted by the end of the week to discuss terms. Darren. She was shaking now. Full body tremors. I'm pregnant. With your baby. You can't just... I can. And I am... His blue eyes, the ones she once thought held oceans of depth, were ice. Frozen. Dead. This hasn't been working for a long time. You know that. I don't know that. I thought we were building a family. I thought... You thought wrong. He turned to the lawyer. Richard, explain the immediate terms. The lawyer opened his briefcase. Started talking. Legal jargon about dissolution of marriage and asset division and custody arrangements. His voice was white noise. Gabriella couldn't process a single word. She was staring at Freya, this stranger, this woman in red. Freya wasn't smiling, wasn't gloating. Her expression was unreadable, almost sad, but that couldn't be right. I don't understand, Gabriella heard herself say. Darren, please, talk to me. We can work this out. Whatever I did wrong, I can fix it. God. She hated herself for begging, but she was drowning and grasping at anything. You didn't do anything wrong, Darren said, and somehow that was worse. I just don't love you. I don't want this marriage. I don't want... He glanced at her belly. Didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. You have 2 hours to pack essentials, the lawyer said. 1 suitcase. Someone will contact you about retrieving the rest of your belongings later. 2 hours. Gabriella's voice broke. This is my home. I've lived here for 4 years. It's my home, Darren corrected. My name on the deed. You'll be compensated in the settlement, but you need to leave tonight. Freya still hadn't spoken, just stood there like a beautiful statue, a monument to Gabriella's destruction. Where am I supposed to go? Gabriella whispered. Darren shrugged. Actually shrugged. That's not my problem anymore. Something in Gabriella cracked then. Not broke. Cracked. A fracture running through her foundation. She turned without another word. Walked up the stairs to the bedroom. Their bedroom, though it had only ever felt like his. Everything decorated to his taste. Her things always feeling like invasions. She pulled a suitcase from the closet. Started throwing things in. Clothes. Toiletries. The baby clothes she'd been folding. Her mother's jewelry box. A photo album from before Darren. Evidence that she'd once been a whole person. Her hands were shaking so badly she kept dropping things. There was a knock on the door. Go away, Darren, she said, not turning around. It's not Darren. Freya's voice. Smooth. Cultured. With an accent Gabriella couldn't place. I really don't want to talk to you right now, Gabriella said, shoving a sweater into the already full suitcase. I understand, but I need you to come with me anyway. Something in Freya's tone made Gabriella turn around. The woman in red stood in the doorway. Up close, she was even more striking. High cheekbones. Full lips painted the color wine. Skin so perfect it looked airbrushed. She had to be in her mid-40s. But she looked ageless. Why would I go anywhere with you? Gabriella asked. You're sleeping with my husband. Yes, Freya said simply. No denial. No apology. But I'm also the only person in this house who's about to help you. So please, come with me. If this story is already hitting you hard, we're just getting started. And I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now if you're feeling Gabriella's pain. Drop a comment and tell me, honestly, what would you do in her position? Would you fight? Would you leave? Would you break down? I want to hear from you. And make sure you're subscribed because what happens next is going to shock you. The twist in this story is unlike anything you've heard before. Don't go anywhere. Let's continue. Gabriella followed Freya down the hallway. She didn't know why. Maybe shock had made her compliant. Maybe she was too exhausted to resist. Maybe some part of her was curious about this woman who'd stolen her life. They went to Darren's study. The room Gabriella had rarely entered. Dark with paneling. Leather furniture. Bookshelves filled with first editions he'd never read. It smelled like his cologne and old cigars. Freya closed the door behind them. Locked it. Gabriella's heart started racing. What are you doing? Making sure we're not interrupted. Freya moved to the desk, opened the bottom drawer, pulled out an envelope, plain, white, bulging. She held it out to Gabriella. Take it, Freya said. Gabriella didn't move. What is it? Open it. With trembling fingers, Gabriella took the envelope, opened it. Her breath caught. Cash. More cash than she'd ever seen in person. Neat stacks of $100 bills, held together with paper bands. There's $20,000 in there, Freya said quietly. Gabriella looked up, confused and terrified. Why are you giving me money? Is this some kind of payment? To go away quietly? To not fight the divorce? No. Freya leaned against the desk. It's a gift, with one condition. What condition? Leave tonight. Don't tell anyone where you're going. Not friends. Not distant relatives. No one. Disappear for 7 days. 7 days? Why 7 days? Because that's how long it takes. For what? Freya's green eyes held hers. For the truth to surface. For people to show you who they really are. For clarity. Gabriella shook her head. This doesn't make any sense. You're his mistress. You just moved into my house. Why would you help me? Because I'm not who you think I am. Freya's voice softened. And because someone once offered me a chance like this, and I was too proud to take it. I lost 5 years of my life because of that pride. I won't watch another woman make the same mistake. I don't understand any of this. You don't have to. Not yet. Freya pushed off from the desk, stood directly in front of Gabriella. She was taller, even without the heels adding inches. Listen to me carefully. Take the money. Leave tonight. Go somewhere no one knows you. Somewhere you can breathe and think. 7 days. On the 7th day, come back here. Early morning. 7 a.m. Come back? Why would I ever come back here? Trust me? Trust you? You're sleeping with my husband. Something flickered across Freya's face. Things are not what they seem, Gabriella. But I can't explain right now. I can only give you this. She tapped the envelope and asked you to trust your intuition. Deep down, beneath the shock and pain, what is it telling you right now? Gabriella closed her eyes, took a breath. Her gut was screaming that nothing about this situation made sense. That Darren's coldness was wrong. That this woman's kindness was impossible. That there was something happening beneath the surface that she couldn't see yet. I don't know, she whispered. Yes, you do. Freya's hand touched her shoulder. Gentle. You know something is off. You know this isn't just a simple affair and divorce. You know there's more to this story. Gabriella opened her eyes. What's your angle? Why are you really doing this? Freya smiled sadly. Because I see myself in you, and I wish someone had seen me. Before Gabriella could respond, there was a knock on the study door. Darren's voice, annoyed. What's going on in there? Nothing, Freya called back. Her voice had changed. Harder now. Colder. Just making sure she understands the situation. She turned back to Gabriella, whispered urgently. 7 days. Promise me. I can't promise that. I don't even know where I'd go. Anywhere. Just away from here. Away from him. Somewhere you can remember who you were before all this. The doorknob rattled. Please, Freya whispered. If you've ever trusted your instincts about anything, trust them now. Gabriella looked down at the envelope. $20,000. Enough to disappear. Enough to breathe. Enough to figure out her next move without desperation. She looked back up at Freya. 7 days. And then what? And then everything becomes clear. It was the most cryptic non-answer Gabriella had ever heard. But somehow, standing in that study with this impossible woman, holding more money than she'd touched in years, she heard herself say, Okay. 7 days. I'll come back in 7 days. Freya's whole body relaxed. Relief washed over her face. Thank you. Hide that money. Don't let Darren see it. And Gabriella? Yes. You're stronger than you know. You're about to find that out. Perfect. She started the car and drove. Away from the mansion. Away from Darren. Away from the wreckage of her life. The rain followed her for the first hour, then gradually stopped. By the time she reached Millbrook, the sky was clearing, stars appearing. The air smelled like salt and seaweed. It was nearly midnight. The town was dark and quiet. She drove slowly down the main street. Victorian houses with wraparound porches. A small downtown with antique shops and a diner. A harbor with fishing boats bobbing gently. She found a bed and breakfast with a vacancy sign. White clapboard, blue shutters, flower boxes in the windows, even though it was too late in the season for flowers. An elderly woman answered the door. She was maybe 70, with white hair in a braid, and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. I'm sorry to bother you so late, Gabriella said. Her voice sounded hollow to her own ears. Do you have a room available? The woman took one look at Gabriella, at her swollen eyes, her trembling hands, her pregnant belly, and she smiled gently. Of course, sweetheart. Come in. I'm Mrs. Kowalski. She didn't ask questions, didn't pry, just led Gabriella upstairs to a small room with a white iron bed and lace curtains and a window that looked out over the ocean. Bathroom is down the hall. Breakfast is at 8, but I can bring something up if you'd rather eat alone. Whatever you need, dear. Thank you, Gabriella whispered. Mrs. Kowalski patted her hand. We all need refuge sometimes. You're safe here. The door closed softly. Gabriella was alone. She sat on the edge of the bed, looked around the room. It was simple, clean, nothing like the mansion with its designer furniture and cold perfection. This room felt warm, lived in, real. She laid down without changing clothes, curled on her side with her hand on her belly, and finally let herself cry. Really cry, not the silent tears she'd been holding back for months. Full, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for her marriage, for the man she thought Darren was, for the 4 years she'd wasted making herself smaller, for the baby growing inside her, who would never have the family Gabriella had dreamed of, for the version of herself she'd lost somewhere along the way. She cried until she had nothing left, until her body was empty and exhausted. And then she slept. She woke up 14 hours later. Sunlight streaming through the lace curtains. The sound of waves in the distance. For a moment, she didn't remember where she was. Then it all came rushing back. The red gown, the lawyer, the suitcase, the money. 7 days. This was day 1. She showered, changed into clean clothes, went downstairs. Mrs. Kowalski was in the kitchen. The smell of coffee and something baking filled the air. There you are, she said warmly. Sit down, dear. I've got blueberry pancakes. Gabriella sat at the small kitchen table. Mrs. Kowalski placed a plate in front of her. Pancakes with real blueberries, butter melting, syrup on the side, orange juice in a mason jar. I don't usually sleep that late, Gabriella said. I'm sorry. Nothing to be sorry for. Your body needed rest. Mrs. Kowalski poured herself coffee and sat across from her. How far along are you? Gabriella's hand went to her belly. 6 months. Your first? Yes. Mrs. Kowalski nodded. Babies change everything, in the best and hardest ways. They ate in comfortable silence. Gabriella was surprised to find she was hungry. She finished the entire plate. There's a walking path along the beach, Mrs. Kowalski said, collecting the dishes. Good for thinking. Good for healing. Gabriella looked at her. How did you know I needed healing? The old woman smiled. Dear, I've been running this bed and breakfast for 30 years. I've seen every kind of heartbreak walk through that door. You don't have to tell me your story, but I can tell you need time and space to find your way through it. Thank you, Gabriella said, and meant it. She spent the rest of that first day and all of the second day in a fog, walking the beach, sitting on benches overlooking the Atlantic, watching the waves throw themselves against the rocks over and over, relentless, persistent, still there despite the battering. She felt numb, disconnected from her body, like she was watching her life from outside herself. She'd check her phone occasionally. No calls from Darren. No texts asking if she was okay. Nothing, like she'd already been erased. There were 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. Probably the lawyer. She didn't listen to the voicemails. On the 3rd day, something shifted. She was eating breakfast. Mrs. Kowalski's blueberry pancakes again. She just lifted her fork when she felt it. A flutter. So light, she almost thought she'd imagined it. Then it came again. Stronger. A tiny movement inside her belly. The baby. Moving. Really moving for the first time. Gabriella froze. Fork halfway to her mouth. Her other hand pressed against her stomach. There it was again. Like butterfly wings. Like a whisper. Like a promise. Her eyes filled with tears. "You okay, sweetheart?" Mrs. Kowalski asked. "The baby," Gabriella whispered. I felt the baby move. Mrs. Kowalski's face lit up. "Oh, that's wonderful. That's your little one saying hello." Gabriella started crying right there at the breakfast table. But these tears were different. Not grief. Something else. Something that felt almost like hope. Because the baby was real. Growing. Alive. Depending on her. "I'm going to be a mother," she said out loud. Testing the words. "Yes, you are. I'm going to be a mother. Alone." Mrs. Kowalski reached across the table. Took her hand. Alone isn't the same as lonely. And it isn't the same as weak. Some of the strongest women I know have raised babies on their own. "I'm scared." "Of course you are. But you're here. You're eating. You're taking care of yourself and that baby. Fear doesn't mean you can't do it. Fear just means it matters." Gabriella squeezed her hand. "How are you so wise? I've lived long enough to know that the worst moments of our lives are usually the doorway to the best ones. We just can't see it while we're in the doorway." That afternoon, Gabriella walked further down the beach than she had before. She found a small cafe, sat outside even though it was chilly, ordered tea. At the next table was a woman painting. Watercolors. She had gray hair and a messy bun and paint stains on her jeans. She was painting the ocean. Fast, confident brushstrokes. "That's beautiful," Gabriella said. The woman looked up, smiled. "Thank you. I'm trying to capture the movement. The water never stays still, you know? It's always becoming something else." "I like that," Gabriella said quietly. "Always becoming something else." "Are you from around here?" "No. Just visiting. Taking some time." The woman nodded knowingly. "Millbrook is good for that. People come here when they need to remember who they are. Is it that obvious? That you're finding your way?" "Yes, but in a good way. You look like someone in the middle of discovering something important." Gabriella touched her belly. "I guess I am." They talked for an hour. The woman's name was Caroline. She'd been a corporate lawyer in Boston. Burned out. Had a breakdown at 45. Came to Millbrook for a weekend and never left. That was 12 years ago. Now she painted and taught art classes to kids and had never been happier. "Sometimes life has to fall apart before it can fall into place," Caroline said. When Gabriella got back to the bed and breakfast, she did something she hadn't done in years. She asked Mrs. Kowalski for a notebook and pen, and she started writing. Not a journal exactly, more like a conversation with herself, with the baby, with the woman she used to be. Who am I without Darren? She stared at the question, tried to answer. I don't know anymore. I used to be Gabriella. Passionate, driven, someone who believed in second chances and redemption, someone who loved her work and her friends and her life. Then I became Darren's wife. And somewhere in that transition, I lost the first part. I became only the second part. But I'm still pregnant with his baby. So I'll always be connected to him in some way. No, stop. The baby isn't about him. The baby is mine. My daughter or son. My chance to do this differently. To show this child what strength looks like. what self-respect looks like. I can't do that if I don't remember what those things look like myself. She wrote for pages, filling the notebook with thoughts and fears and realizations. Day 4 arrived. Then day 5. On day 5, Gabriella woke up angry. Not sad, not numb, angry. It came on suddenly. She was brushing her teeth and caught sight of herself in the mirror. Her hair was straight, chemically relaxed. Darren had never said directly that he preferred it that way, but he'd made comments. Your natural hair is beautiful, but maybe for the office events, something more polished? And she'd understood. Polished meant straight. Acceptable meant not too black. She'd change her hair for him. She'd change her clothes for him. Her laugh, her opinions, her friends, her career. She'd erased herself for him, and he'd still thrown her away. The anger was clean, sharp, clarifying. Gabriella got dressed and walked to the beach. It was early. The sun was just rising. The beach was empty, and she started running. She hadn't run in years. Darren thought it was unladylike, but she ran now, her pregnant belly making it awkward, her breath coming in gasps, her legs burning. She ran until she couldn't run anymore. Then she stood there, hands on her knees, panting, facing the ocean, and she screamed, just screamed. All the rage and pain and betrayal and grief. Screamed it at the waves. Let the wind carry it away. When she was done, she felt lighter, emptied out in a good way. She walked back slowly. Mrs. Kowalski was on the porch, watering her empty flower boxes. "Good morning," she said, not commenting on Gabriella's disheveled appearance or the fact that she was clearly out of breath. "Morning," Gabriella said. "I think I just put something heavy down." Mrs. Kowalski smiled. "Good. Heavy things aren't meant to be carried forever." Gabriella spent the rest of day 5 writing more. Angry writing. Making lists. Things I gave up for Darren. My job at Hope Harbor. My friendship with Imani. Sunday morning runs. Bright colors. My natural hair. My opinions. My space. My identity. Things I'm taking back. All of it. Every single thing. Day 6 came with a decision. Gabriella woke up knowing she needed to make a phone call. She'd been avoiding it all week. Too ashamed. Too scared. But the anger had burned away the shame. And the fear was still there, but it wasn't stopping her anymore. She called Imani. The phone rang 3 times. Gabriella almost hung up. Then, "Hello." Imani's voice. God, it had been so long. "Imani." Gabriella's voice cracked. "It's me. It's Gabby." Silence. Then, "Gabby? Oh my God. Gabby, where have you been? Are you okay? I've been so worried." And just like that, Gabriella was crying again. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry for what? What happened? Talk to me." So Gabriella talked for 2 hours, sitting on the bed in her little room overlooking the ocean. She told Imani everything. The distance in her marriage, the pregnancy, coming home to find Darren with a lawyer and another woman, being kicked out of her own house, the strange encounter with Freya, the money, the 7 days in Millbrook. Imani listened, asked questions, got angry on Gabriella's behalf, cried with her. That absolute piece of garbage. Imani said, "I never liked him. You know I never liked him." "I know. You tried to tell me." "I did, but you weren't ready to hear it. And that's okay. Sometimes we have to learn things the hard way." "I ghosted you," Gabriella said. "For almost 2 years. I was a terrible friend. You were in a controlling relationship. That's what they do. They isolate you, make you think the problem is you. Gabby, I never stopped loving you. I never stopped hoping you'd come back to yourself. I'm trying to. That's what this week has been. Trying to find myself again." "Are you finding her?" Gabriella looked out the window at the ocean, thought about the running, the screaming, the writing, the anger that had finally arrived. "Yeah, I think I am." "Good, because I've missed her. I've missed you." They talked about Imani's life. She was engaged now. She'd gotten promoted at work. Life had continued without Gabriella, but there was no resentment in Imani's voice. Just love. Just welcome. When you get back, Imani said, when you're ready, you have a place to stay. My door is always open. Thank you, but I think I need my own place. My own space. Even better. Independence looks good on you. I can hear it in your voice. Really? Really? You sound different. Stronger. Like the Gabby I met in college. Before all the shrinking. After they hung up, Gabriella felt something she hadn't felt in years. Connected. Seen. Remembered. She also called her old boss at Hope Harbor. Left a voicemail. Hi, Marcus. It's Gabriella. I know it's been 4 years. But if there's any chance, any possibility that you might have a position available, I'd love to talk. I'm ready to come back. I'm ready to do the work that matters again. Day 7 arrived. Gabriella woke before dawn, packed her single suitcase, went downstairs where Mrs. Kowalski was already in the kitchen. You're leaving, the old woman said. Not a question. Yes, it's time. Did you find what you came here for? Gabriella thought about it. I found myself. Or at least I remember where I'd left her. Mrs. Kowalski hugged her. That's the best thing anyone can find. You're going to be just fine. Sweetheart, you and that baby. They exchanged phone numbers. Gabriella promised to let her know when the baby was born. And if you ever need refuge again, Mrs. Kowalski said, you have a place here. Gabriella drove back to the city, back toward the mansion, back toward whatever Freya's cryptic instructions meant. She felt different. She was different. A week ago, she'd been shattered, broken into pieces. Now she was, what? Not whole, not healed, but solid, like the pieces had been gathered, and she was figuring out how they fit together in a new configuration. She arrived at the mansion at 7 a.m. exactly. The fog was thick. The house looked different, colder, less impressive, just a building. She parked on the street, not in the driveway. She wasn't a resident anymore. She was a visitor, here for answers. She walked to the front door. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. She rang the doorbell. Footsteps inside. The door opened. Freya stood there, but not the Freya from a week ago. No red gown. No diamonds. She wore jeans and a simple white blouse. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked normal, almost ordinary. You came back, Freya said. There was relief in her voice. You told me to. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't, Gabrielle admitted. But I need to know what this is about. Why you helped me. What happens now? Freya stepped aside. Come in, please. Gabriella walked into the foyer. The chandelier still hung there. Still beautiful. Still cold. But it didn't intimidate her anymore. It was just glass and light. This way, Freya said. She led Gabriella not to the study but to the living room. The room Darren had designed with sharp, modern furniture. Everything black and white and chrome. Uncomfortable to sit on. Designed to impress, not to live in. And there, on the stiff sofa, was Darren. He looked terrible. His hair was uncombed. He hadn't shaved. His eyes were red and swollen. He'd lost weight. His clothes were rumpled like he'd slept in them. When he saw Gabriella, he stood up so fast he almost tripped. Gabriella, thank God. I thought I'd never see you again. I thought you were gone forever. Gabriella stood very still. Her hand went to her belly. Protective. Grounding. She looked at this man. Her husband. The man who'd thrown her out a week ago. And she felt nothing. No love. No hatred. Just a vast, clear emptiness. Hello, Darren, she said calmly. He moved toward her. She took a step back. He stopped. Gabriella, please. I need to talk to you. I need to explain. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. Did you? Her voice was flat. Yes. God, yes. The moment you walked out that door, I knew I destroyed everything. I haven't slept. I haven't eaten. I've been going out of my mind. Gabriella looked at Freya. Is this why you told me to come back? So he could apologize? No, Freya said quietly. I told you to come back, so you could hear the truth. All of it. Darren shot Freya a look. Panicked. Freya, you said you'd help me fix this. I said I'd help you see what you had before you destroyed it, Freya corrected. I never said I'd help you lie. Listen, if you're not glued to the screen right now, I don't know what to tell you. Hit that like button if this twist is blowing your mind. And comment below, Team Gabriella or Team Walk Away Forever, because what you're about to hear is going to change everything. Keep watching. Lie. Gabriella's voice was sharp. What is she talking about, Darren? Darren's face went pale. It's not. It's complicated. Uncomplicated, Gabriella said. Freya stepped forward. I'll uncomplicate it. Darren and I were never together. Not in the way you think. The room tilted. Gabriella reached for the back of a chair to steady herself. What? We were never romantically involved, Freya continued. I'm a corporate consultant. Darren hired me 6 months ago because his company was failing. Bad investments. Terrible financial decisions. He was hemorrhaging money and needed someone to fix it. Gabriella's mind was racing. But the red gown, moving into the house. He said, I know what he said, and I know what it looked like. That was intentional. I don't understand. Freya's expression was sad, disappointed. Darren asked me to pretend to be his mistress, to help him manufacture a crisis. So you would leave, so he could see how he felt without you. The words didn't make sense. Gabriella looked at Darren. What is she saying? Darren's hands were shaking. I was confused. About us. About the marriage. About becoming a father. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. So you what? Stage a fake affair to test me? To test myself, Darren said. To see if I really loved you. If I missed you when you were gone. Gabriella stared at him. The emptiness inside her was filling with something else now. Something hot and sharp. You kicked me out. Pregnant. With nowhere to go. As a test. I knew you'd be fine. You're smart. Resourceful. I had $60 in my purse, Darren. $60. You took away my access to our accounts years ago. Said you'd handle the finances. I had no job. No recent work history. No plan. If Freya hadn't given me that money, I would have been sleeping in my car. But she did give you the money. I knew she would. Gabriella turned to Freya. You knew he was going to do this? No, Freya said firmly. Absolutely not. When Darren first came to me with his doubts about your marriage, I suggested he take some space. Go to a hotel for a few days. Have some time alone to think. That's what therapists recommend. Healthy space. But I needed more than that, Darren interrupted. I needed to know for sure. So I asked Freya to help me make it real. To make you actually leave, so I could see what life without you felt like. And she agreed? Gabriella looked at Freya, betrayal creeping in. I almost didn't, Freya said quietly. I told him it was cruel, manipulative, wrong. But he pushed. Said I didn't understand complicated marriages. Said I was too judgmental. And she took a breath. I had my own reasons for saying yes. Reasons I'll explain. But Gabriella, I want you to know, the moment I saw your face that night, I regretted it. Immediately. So you gave me money and sent me away for 7 days. Why 7 days specifically? Because I wanted you to have time, Freya said. Real time away from the chaos and heartbreak. Time to breathe, to think, to remember who you were before all this. I hoped you'd come back stronger, clear-headed, able to make a real choice, not one made from desperation. A choice about what? About whether to take him back, Freya said. Darren stepped forward again. And I hope you will. Gabriella, I know what I did was wrong. I see that now. But it worked. The test worked. I know now, beyond any doubt, that I love you, that I can't live without you, that you and the baby are everything. Gabriella looked at him, really looked at him. This man she'd loved. This man she'd shrunk herself for. This man who'd gamble with her sanity to satisfy his curiosity. You know what you discovered, Darren? She said quietly. You didn't discover that you love me. You discovered that you don't like losing control. That's not true. It is true. You knew you loved me. You knew when you married me. You knew when I got pregnant. You knew every single day of our 4-year marriage. But you decided that your confusion, Your uncertainty, your need to test your own feelings was more important than my dignity, more important than my safety, more important than our child. I was wrong. I admit it. But please, Gabriella, don't throw away 4 years because I made one mistake. You didn't make one mistake, Darren. You made 1,000 small mistakes over 4 years. You isolated me from my friends. You convinced me to quit my job. You criticized everything about me until I didn't recognize myself. You made me smaller and smaller until I almost disappeared. And then, when I was at my most vulnerable, carrying your baby, you orchestrated the cruelest possible betrayal just to see what would happen. I'll change. I swear I'll change. We can go to therapy. We can work on this together. Gabriella turned to Freya. You said you had your own reasons for agreeing to this. What were they? Freya's eyes filled with tears. Because I was you 15 years ago. I was you. She sat down on the edge of the sofa. Darren stayed standing, frozen. Gabriella remained where she was. I was married, Freya began, to a man named James. I met him when I was 24. He was brilliant, successful, charming. We got married within a year. And slowly, so slowly I didn't even notice it happening, he started testing me. Testing you how? Gabriella asked. Little things at first. If you really love me, you'd skip your sister's birthday party to stay home with me. If you really love me, you'd quit your master's program because it takes too much of your time. If you really love me, you'd prove it by changing this or giving up that. Every test I passed. There was another one, bigger, more demanding. Freya's voice was shaking now. I gave up my education, my friends, my family time, my hobbies, everything, because every time I passed a test, I got rewarded. He'd be loving again, attentive, and I was so desperate for that love. I kept proving myself, over and over, for 10 years. What happened? Gabriella asked quietly. I woke up at 34 and didn't recognize myself. I'd become a performance, a collection of behaviors designed to earn love. I had a colleague, a woman who saw what was happening. She offered to help me, gave me money, told me to leave for a month, just 1 month to clear my head. And I said no. Why? Pride, shame, fear. I couldn't admit my marriage was broken. Couldn't admit I'd lost myself. So I stayed for 5 more years. Until I overheard James talking to a friend. He said, she'll do anything I ask. It's almost boring how much she loves me. There's no challenge anymore. Gabriella's heart broke for this woman. That's when you left? That's when I finally left. I was 39. I'd wasted 15 years becoming someone I wasn't. I rebuilt my life. Started my consulting business. Found myself again. But I carry so much regret. About those 5 years I could have saved if I'd been brave enough to take that colleague's offer. So when Darren asked you to participate in his test, I saw an opportunity, Freya said. A terrible one. But I thought, if I gave you what that colleague gave me, time and resources and space, maybe you'd be braver than I was. Maybe you'd choose yourself instead of wasting years like I did. You used me, Gabriella said, not angry, just stating fact. Yes, I did, and I'm sorry. But Gabriella, look at you right now. Look at how you're standing, how you're speaking. You came back here, but you're not the same woman who left. You're stronger. You see clearly. That's what I hoped for. Darren had been silent through Freya's story. Now he spoke up. You see? Even Freya understands complicated marriages. Gabriella, I was confused, but now I'm not. Can't we move past this? Gabriella turned to him slowly. Do you know who I am, Darren? He blinked. What? It's a simple question. Do you know who I am? You're my wife, the mother of my child. What was my job before we got married? He hesitated. You worked for a charity. What kind of charity? What was my title? Something with helping people. I was a grant writer for a nonprofit called Hope Harbor. We help formerly incarcerated women rebuild their lives. I loved that job more than anything. It gave me purpose. And you called it beneath your status and convinced me to quit. Darren's face flushed. That's not fair. What's my best friend's name? Longer pause. Emily? Imani. Her name is Imani. You met her at least 20 times. She was my maid of honor at our wedding. I can't be expected to remember every single friend. She wasn't every single friend. She was my best friend since college. My sister in every way that matters. And you didn't remember her name because you never cared to learn it. Because my life before you didn't matter to you. She stepped closer to him. What's my favorite book? My mother's maiden name? What I wanted to be when I was a little girl. My favorite food? The song that makes me cry? Anything, Darren. Tell me anything real about me. He couldn't. The silence stretched. Painful. Damning. You don't love me, Gabriella said. You love the idea of someone loving you unconditionally. You love having control. You love knowing I'd shrink myself to fit into your life. But you don't know me. You never tried to know me. That's not true. We can learn. We can start over. No, we can't, because I don't love you either. Not anymore. Maybe I never really did. Maybe I just loved the fantasy of being chosen by someone successful, someone who seemed to have it all figured out. But loving a fantasy isn't the same as loving a person. What about the baby? She needs a father. She needs a mother who knows her worth. That's what I'm going to give her. I'm filing for divorce. It will be final. You'll support this child financially, but you'll have to earn a right to be in her life emotionally. Gabriella, please. I'm going back to work. I already called my old boss. I'm rebuilding my friendships. I'm reclaiming my name in my life and my identity. And I'm doing it without you. She turned to leave. Darren called after her. Gabriella, don't walk out that door. Don't throw away our marriage. She stopped. Look back at him one last time. I'm not throwing it away. You already did that. I'm just acknowledging what's already gone. And she walked out. Freya followed her to porch. They stood there in the morning fog. Thank you, Gabriella said, for the money, for the 7 days, for telling me the truth. I'm sorry I was part of hurting you. You were also part of saving me. So thank you. Freya smiled through tears. What will you do now? Live. Actually live. I'm going to get my own apartment. Have this baby. Go back to work that matters. Spend time with people who actually know my name. Build a life that's mine. That sounds beautiful. What about you? What will you do? Make sure Darren keeps his word about the settlement. Then close this chapter. I've been holding on to my own past for too long. It's time to let it go. They hugged. Two women who'd been on opposite sides of a terrible situation, who'd both been used, who'd both found unexpected connection. If you ever need anything, Freya said, handing her a business card. Anything at all, call me. Gabriella took the card. I will. And Freya, thank you for being brave enough to help me when you couldn't help yourself back then. Gabriella walked to her car, got in, started the engine, and drove away from the mansion, watching it disappear in her rear-view mirror. She didn't cry, didn't feel sad. She felt free. 3 months later, Gabriella stood in her new apartment. It was small, a one-bedroom, in a building near the harbor. She could hear seagulls from her window, could walk to work. She'd started back at Hope Harbor 2 weeks after leaving Darren. Marcus, her old boss, had welcomed her with open arms and tears. I knew you'd come back, he'd said. You belong here. She did belong there, working with the women, writing grants, making a difference, remembering why she'd chosen this work in the first place. Imani lived 2 blocks away. They had dinner 3 times a week. Gabriella had met Keisha, Imani's fiancée, had been asked to be in their wedding, had said yes through happy tears. The divorce had been finalized quickly. Darren had given her everything she'd asked for without contest. Perhaps guilt. Perhaps the one decent thing he could manage. The settlement was fair. Enough to buy her modest apartment outright. Enough to give her breathing room. Her belly was huge now. 9 months pregnant. Due any day. She'd found out she was having a daughter. Had chosen the name Maya. New life. New beginning. The nursery was small but perfect. Decorated in yellows and greens. A crib she'd assembled herself. clothes from a consignment shop, books stacked on a shelf, everything ready. There was a knock at her door one Saturday afternoon. Gabriella opened it to find Freya standing there, holding a gift bag, looking uncertain. "I hope this isn't inappropriate," Freya said, "but I saw this and thought of you." Gabriella smiled. "Come in." She opened the gift. It was a children's book, beautifully illustrated, about a girl who built herself wings and learned to fly. "It's perfect," Gabriella said, tears in her eyes. "I wanted you to have something to give Maya, to tell her that her mother is the bravest person I know." "Stay for tea," Gabriella said. "I just made some." They sat in the sunny living room, talked about books and babies and new beginnings. Freya asked if she could feel the baby kick. Gabriella took her hand and placed it on her belly. Maya obliged with a strong kick. "She's strong," Freya said, wonder in her voice. "She is," Gabriella agreed. "We both are." The afternoon light filled the room. Outside, the world continued its chaotic turning. But in this small apartment, two women who'd been through fire sat together, living proof that the end of one story is always the beginning of another. Gabriella's hand rested on her belly, on Maya, on the future. "We're gonna be okay," she whispered. "Better than okay." And she meant it. "Before we say goodbye, I need you to hear this. Because Gabriella's story isn't just entertainment. It's a mirror. It's a warning. It's a promise. Here are the truths this story teaches us. First, your worth is not determined by someone else's ability to see it. Darren couldn't see Gabriella's value, but that didn't diminish it. Not even a little. You are whole and worthy, with or without anyone's validation. If someone makes you feel like you need to earn love through constant proof, that's not love. That's control. Second, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually a gift in disguise. If Darren hadn't betrayed Gabriella, she might have spent decades in that cold mansion, shrinking smaller and smaller, forgetting who she was. His cruelty freed her. It hurt terribly, but it freed her. Not every ending is a tragedy. Some endings are mercy. Third, take the help, even when it comes from unexpected places. Pride could have made Gabriella refuse Freya's money. Ego could have stopped her from calling Imani. But wisdom made her accept the lifelines thrown her way. When you're drowning, you don't ask if the person throwing you a rope has the right credentials. You grab the rope. Fourth, you cannot love someone into loving you correctly. Gabriella tried for 4 years. She shrunk. She changed. She performed. And it was never enough because the problem wasn't her. Love is an effort. Real love is ease and respect and partnership. If you're constantly trying to earn it, you already don't have it. Fifth, the relationship you have with yourself sets the standard for every other relationship in your life. When Gabriella rediscovered herself in Millbrook, when she remembered her worth, she couldn't accept Darren's scraps anymore. The math didn't work. Once you know your value, you can't pretend not to know it. And sixth, women supporting women is a revolutionary act. Freya could have been the enemy. Society expected her to be the enemy, but instead, she became the catalyst for Gabriella's freedom. We're taught to compete, to see other women as threats. But imagine what becomes possible when we choose connection instead. So here's what I want you to do right now. If this story moved you, if it made you think, if it reminded you of your own strength, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's shrinking in a relationship. Someone who's forgotten who they are. Someone who needs permission to choose themselves. And comment below. Tell me, what's the biggest lesson you're taking from Gabriella's journey? What part of her story hit you hardest? I read every single comment. This is a community. We learn from each other's stories. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join this family. We share stories that matter. Stories that heal. Stories that remind you of your own power. Hit that subscribe button right now. And to anyone watching this who's in the middle of their own story, who's trying to figure out if they should stay or go, who's scared and confused and feeling small, I want to speak this over you. You are not too broken to rebuild. You are not too lost to find your way home. Home to yourself. You are stronger than the person who hurt you. You are worthy of real love, the kind that doesn't require you to disappear. You are enough exactly as you are right now without changing a single thing. The door is always open. The path back to yourself is always there. And you don't need anyone's permission to walk it. You just need courage. And you have that. Even if you can't feel it right now, it's there. Until next time, remember Gabriella. Remember that she survived the unsurvivable. Remember that she chose herself. Remember that she built a beautiful life from the ashes. You can too. I'll see you in the next story.